It's a crime by desperate people working very cheap.
It's a nasty game. Literally, lives are at stake.
Well, maybe for drugs, maybe for some liquor, maybe for a marginal amount of money.
She might have thought she might collect the insurance.
I think they see it as the only way and the last way out.
He started begging me not to shoot.
If you're going to kill somebody, you don't just kill them a little bit, you kill them really big.
It was never hard for me to kill animals or to kill anything. At the time, it didn't bother me what I did to him. And when he did, he started running. I turned, I shot, and he fell down. And I went over there and I put 2 more shots in the back of his head. I said, well, that'll do it, you know. I think of myself as a man that just made a wrong choice in life. Hitman, I'm not mafia. I'm not mafia style at all. No, I'm just a regular human being.
Just a regular human being who was the killer in a murder-for-hire conspiracy.
As far as planning, I just did it when the mood hit me to.
Though he may disagree with the description, Leroy Wenzel is what's commonly called a hitman.
Hitman is for somebody that's big time. You know what I mean? And this is nothing big time. It's nothing big time at all.
What Wenzel believes wasn't big time was the cold-blooded murder of his sister-in-law's husband. Now he's in a North Carolina prison where he's serving a sentence of life plus 30 years. Wenzel was convicted of second-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and robbery. This is his first television interview.
All the way back already when I was 5 years old, I knew I was going to be in prison. I had that in my mind all the time. Sooner or later, I would be in prison because of the way I lived my life, you know.
Leroy Wenzel is a former drug addict and motorcycle gang member, though he now only rides a wheelchair. He sustained a serious back injury from a fall soon after he was incarcerated. Police say Leroy Wenzel is a typical trigger man in an all too typical murder for hire.
The domestic-related murder for hire is low-paying. It's a family member. The killer knows the victim knows the killer.
It's some member of the family promising another family member a chunk of the insurance proceeds if they'll commit a murder for them. That's what happens most of the time.
My wife, Sheila, and her sister, Pat Brown, hired me to take care of her husband, you know, to kill her husband.
April 25th of 1991, Mr. Fred Brown was found dead on the side of the road on Highway 68 South, near the airport.
We had his body, we had a car. We really didn't have any suspects or any reason why Frederick Brown was dead.
But Lieutenant Jonathan Jacobs of North Carolina's Guilford County Sheriff's Office did have his suspicions, and they all centered around the victim's wife.
Pat Brown wanted the insurance money. Her demeanor, very bitter towards us, not cooperative, and as a victim's wife would want to be, find my killer and I'll do anything I can to help you. It just really wasn't there.
She just expressed no emotion about the death of her husband. Matter of fact, either she or one of the witnesses said, I want the cheapest burial possible. You know, he treated me like dirt, I'm gonna bury him like dirt.
You got a little bit of a feeling that, there's something here.
But feelings are not hard evidence, and the case began growing cold as investigators were growing frustrated.
It was just an unsolved murder that we really weren't, that the police, despite their best efforts, really were not able to make much progress on.
Then, after almost 2 years, Detective Jonathan Jacobs got a break.
In '94, in Reading, Pennsylvania, Leroy Wenzel got arrested up there for non-support from his ex-wife. And during the conversations that he had with the officers in Reading, Pennsylvania, it came out that he had done a murder, and somewhere in North Carolina, He had left some letters for his daughter, and his daughter turned them over to the police department up there. And on the outside it said, "To be opened upon my death." And then it was a written confession that he had killed Fred Brown.
I, Leroy Wenzel, was to be paid $30,000. I shot Fred Brown.
He also wanted Fred Brown's wife, Pat, to go down with him.
The whole thing was arranged by my wife, Sheila Wenzel, and her sister, Pat Brown.
Because he was mad because he never got paid. And he wanted to take down the person who got him to do this. Not that his arm was held behind his back, but he also wanted Fred Brown's wife, Pat, to go down with him because she hired him and didn't pay up.
She'd pay me $700 here, $500 there, saying that she has to watch her money, that she don't spend too much at one time. She always had an excuse.
Who knows what goes through the minds of people like that? If you think you can pay somebody to kill your husband, I'm sure you're just as positive that you can get by without paying them for it.
Leroy Wenzel was angry, and when confronted by his own letter, he began to detail for police how he savagely executed Frederick Brown.
I had called him up and told him my car broke down and had him come out in a dark area, to meet him. And that's when I went in to open up the back door of the station wagon and got my gun out. And I told him, I said, your wife wants you dead. I said, she's going to pay good to have it done. I said, that's why I'm here. He started begging me not to shoot him and told me he would pay me to anything I wanted or do anything he wanted me to do. And when he did, he started running. I turned, I shot, and he fell down. And I thought, man, it couldn't be this easy, And I went back over to him and took my foot and pushed him. And I thought, well, maybe he ain't dead, so I probably 2 more shots in the back of his head. And I was expecting to see blood or something splatter, but it didn't,
Several hours after Frederick Brown's murder, his wife called 911 to report him missing.
My daughter came home at 10:30 and he was gone. Okay, might he have gone out with his friends or something? Not that I know. Well, man, you need to calm down now. You can't do anything if you get out of control.
In my opinion, she had days and weeks to rehearse this. And when you prepare yourself well enough, you can sell it. And she did. She was good at it. She wanted the money, and the money drove her.
But it was her unwillingness to share the money that ultimately led Leroy Wenzel and his wife Sheila to become witnesses for District Attorney Jim Kimmel. In return, they were allowed to plead guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree murder. Sheila Wenzel is serving a sentence of 50 years. And Patricia Brown, like Leroy Wenzel, is serving a sentence of life plus 30 years after she was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder.
It just seems like that marital discord fosters not only the greatest love in the world, but sometimes also the greatest hate and frustration in the world that leads for one party to contract to kill her spouse.
I think they see it as the only way and the last way out, the only way for them. Desperation, I think, drives a lot of people.
Murder for hire is a much bigger issue than most people realize. There's no question about it.
Louis Mizell is a Washington-based analyst and consultant on the criminal justice system. He has compiled one of the nation's largest databases on murder for hire cases.
Murder for hire is definitely a growth industry in the United States. During the last decade, more than 1,900 men, women, and children are known to have sought out a hit man or a hit woman in order to eliminate a spouse, a rival, or a competitor, or perhaps to collect on someone else's insurance policy.
If you're going to kill somebody, you don't just kill them a little bit, you kill them really big. You want to send a message. Cut them up or shoot them in a way that sends that message in a more graphic way, then you do that kind of stuff.
Jack Ballantyne has agreed to perform dozens of contract killings. As an undercover detective with the Phoenix Police Department, Ballantyne has probably worked as many murder-for-hire cases as any cop in the country.
The common thread is that each one of these people are willing to take somebody's life in a very, very painful way to accomplish whatever they think is important to them.
Ballantyne has learned over the years that those who hire him want the graphic details of the pending murder. He says Deborah Moonlaw was like that when she tried to hire Ballantyne to kill her husband.
She wanted more. She wanted me to hurt. She wanted me to suffer. And that surprised me and scared me more than anything else.
Nabil Moonlaw is a struggling home builder in Phoenix, Arizona. For several years, he has been coming to terms with the knowledge that his wife tried to have him murdered.
We were married for 17 years. You think you know that person, and you think that she knows you. But in this case, thinking about it, I don't think that I ever knew her. I never thought that she can even think about something like this, hiring somebody to kill me, to hurt me.
But Nabil eventually learned that his wife had earlier tried to do the job herself using DMSO, a readily available topical liquid that is supposed to open the skin's pores. Deborah outlined her failed attempt to kill her husband during a call to a friend who had become a police informant.
Have you ever heard of DMSO?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought, oh, what a wonderful cocktail of massage, and then, you know, Everclear is extremely high content of alcohol. I thought, perfect. He's got bottles of alcohol in his bedroom. DMSO is not picked up by anything. It evaporates and so on. I will give him a massage to die for.
I had the life insurance, and at that time we were still married. We were not divorced yet, so she might have thought she might collect the insurance.
But insurance money may have been little more than icing on the cake. Her primary motive appeared to be her desire to get sole custody of their 3 children. At least that's what she told Ballantyne when he telephoned her, while posing as a particularly brutal hitman.
Usually what I like to do before either I shoot or whatever I do, I like to let them know, courtesy of, I wish you the best. And leave that as a parting thought for them.
Yeah.
Their last thought.
Yeah, if there's any wish that I would have, that would be it. I want him to know.
I really doubted everything that was told to me verbally until I heard conversations, the taped conversations between her and her friend. And now she wanted somebody else to handle it, a professional.
Detectives informed Nabil that he needed to watch his back, just in case his wife reached out to other potential murderers. It's one of Ballantyne's constant fears.
It seems like every one of the cases that I've done, they have been looking for someone at the same time they're looking for me or find me. And I'm able to present myself to where they're comfortable enough that I'm the one that they want to hire. It isn't very often that I'm just the first or only person that they've contacted.
That's one reason Ballantyne was eager to set up a personal meeting with Deborah Moonlaw. Detective Ballantyne had transformed himself into an ex-convict with an attitude, who had a sadistic desire to not just murder, but also torture Nabil Moonlaw.
I love kneecaps. Baseball bat for kneecaps for a while. Hey, I'm telling you, because they don't die.
Yeah.
They just really, really hurt.
Yeah.
You know? And then a baseball cap or a bat to the side of the head. It doesn't kill them. You hit them just nice, but enough to get their attention.
That was something that probably hurt me the most, that she wanted to see me suffer that much.
A night of hell for the bill, you know?
Yeah, where he's going to be begging to just do me in, let me go.
Well, yeah. And then I'll just finish it, you know. What I'll do is I'll just shoot him in the head. He's gone. It's easy. No big deal. And then I'll drop him in the well. And in the well, it's full of snakes.
I mean, she wanted to get rid of me. Okay, you know, you shoot the guy and get rid of him, but to torture him and to break my knees and to dump me in a mine shaft, those more were a spite than anything else, I believe.
Deborah Moonlaw tells the judge during the case, or testifies during the case, that she was so intimidated by me that that's why she followed through with this.
What did he say? Did he like that?
He liked that.
She was laughing, she was flirting, she was giggling, and the judge sees that, and the judge goes, "You showed no signs of being afraid, and you had every opportunity to leave that you could have left."
I cannot believe that any person would be so ruthless.
But if Nabil was shocked by the violent style in which his wife wanted him killed, then he was left speechless over the way she wanted to pay for the job.
They're 18-karat gold, and that was a gift to me by my ex-brother-in-law for my wedding. I thought these were appropriate. I was told at one time $1,200.
$1,200 for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know, pawn shops, of course.
No, we don't talk pawn shops.
Okay.
Deborah Moonlaw was going to pay for the murder contract with slightly more than $1,000 worth of jewelry. Yet she probably didn't have to pay even that much.
The people who solicit murder for hires range from high school students to blue-collar workers, all the way up to Fortune 500 executives. So the prices range from $5.65 with a used mountain bike thrown in for good measure, all the way up to $1 million, which usually involves the victim's life insurance money. But average price is slightly under $10,000, but we can still point to hundreds and hundreds of cases where the contract was accepted for under $800.
The price Deborah Moonlaw ultimately paid became much higher with her arrest.
Hi.
You're Deborah?
No?
No? Deborah.
She is now serving a life sentence for conspiracy to commit murder. Moonlaw is one of a growing number of women who are being convicted of this very strange crime.
The Moonlaw case is not in the least bit unusual. We've recorded hundreds of cases in which women, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone's daughter, has gone out and hired a contract killer. And many of these women are employed as nurses, they're employed as doctors, as teachers, as babysitters, you name it. This is one crime where women are fast gaining equality with men.
But whether male or female, experts say that many of those searching for a paid killer seem to share a common quality, specifically a sense of irrational desperation or helplessness. After 10 years of posing as various paid killers, Jack Ballantyne is hanging up his assassin's hat. He recently sought a transfer to a different division of the Phoenix Police Department. He will no longer do undercover work in murder-for-hire cases, though Ballantyne says he is still intrigued and concerned by all the people in search of a hitman.
I am surprised at every one of these. I am surprised that anybody would go to the extreme of having somebody killed. I am stunned by that.
In a sense, what he's doing is he's fulfilling the fantasy for the person who's talking to him.
It's like giving up cigarettes. I know.
And they are in a fantasy world. That's regrettable, but it's true.
Criminal defense attorney Alan Bickert is a sharp critic of Detective Ballantyne and other cops who pose as hitmen to arrest those in search of a murder contract.
And if you speak to anybody who has been convicted of this offense and who is either in prison or out of prison, they will tell you they don't have the faintest idea why they did what they did.
Bickert has represented several defendants after each hired Jack Ballantyne for a contract killing. And he says most of those clients need psychiatric help as much as they need to be incarcerated. As an example, he points to Jan Solomon.
Well, Jan Solomon is a, I want to say, probably 56-year-old man, if I remember correctly on his age. 56 years old, and when he was around 14 years old, I believe 14, 15 years old, he had a girlfriend in high school. And they split up, went about their separate ways. Now here he is, 56 years old. He walks into a business, and who does he walk into? This girlfriend. He's back with the same girl. They recognize each other. They fall back in love with each other. And according to Jan Solomon, they started seeing each other. And Jan Solomon felt that the only way they could be together was to eliminate her husband. And so he set out to find somebody that could kill the husband. And I was able to put myself in the position of being a mobster from back east that does hits.
To look the part, Ballantyne slicked back his hair, donned a $1,000 suit, and carried a huge roll of cash. He made a show of peeling off several $1,000s for a woman posing as his girlfriend. Jan Solomon appeared to be awestruck and did his best to impress the mafia killer.
You look like you're in good shape. Oh, hey, man. You look like you're in good shape. You just got the there you go. I am. Very good. Very good. Yes. You know, I'm a new man. I got the body. I tell people I got the body of a 25-year-old, the mind of a 12-year-old, and the inside of a 7-year-old.
Ballantyne says Jan Solomon felt like a man with limited time to live, a man who was ready to take some risks.
He had a heart condition. And he even said this during the deal, that his heart condition, he had nothing to lose. He knew that. He says, I've got a heart condition, I'm going to die before too long. Well, that was true. Because Jan Solomon died about 6 weeks after he went into prison of a massive heart attack.
I believe that in his own grandiose sense and in his own narcissistic sense, while the end was to have an execution of the spouse of a woman whom he was having a liaison with, I think that a very important and integral part of this, that this was big news for him. This was something big. This was a mafia, a quote-unquote mafia hitman coming in to engage with Jan Solomon. This was big news.
Psychiatrist Stephen Pitt performed a videotaped evaluation of Jan Solomon after his arrest, and only weeks before he died of a heart attack. The tape provides a rare insight into the types of people whom he says might try to solicit a paid murder. With one camera trained on Jan Solomon and the second on Dr. Pitt, Solomon began to paint himself as the victim.
And I didn't know how to tell Ballantyne, let's forget the whole thing. I don't want to do this. The lady changed her mind. I thought about things. How can I get out of this gracefully without getting maybe killed or beat up? I really did, Dr. Pitt. And he did intimidate me. He did scare me. And sometimes you get ground in and you don't know how to get out. It's like a boxer that's cornered in the ring and you can't get away from the guy and he's going to knock you out. And I felt that way. I felt scared. I was intimidated.
I hear that and I just have to giggle to myself. And that's that whole selfish persona that we keep talking about. You can take the life of somebody else, but now you're a little worried that your life might be taken. You're a little scared about yours. You know, and I think to myself, if you felt that way about everybody else, we'd be a lot better off. If you worried about everybody as much as you're worrying about yourself, we'd sure be a lot better off here. And you then would choose a better option than killing somebody.
On the surface, it appears that it's a very selfish act, but in reality, it's a cry for help. It's an act of desperation. They have come to the bottom of the well, and this is the only thing that in their delusional mind they can believe that will solve all of their problems.
And Jan Solomon's belief in murder as a solution was made apparent by his willingness to continue with the assassination plot even after Ballantyne gave him an out.
If you want to tell me now, forget about it, then you tell me right now to forget about it. I'm on a plane tomorrow and I'm out of here.
But instead of making a hasty exit, Solomon took off a bracelet to give to Ballantyne as partial payment for the murder. The tape contradicts Solomon's claim that he was searching for a way out of the murder deal. Yet that contradiction was something Jan Solomon simply could not face.
Because see, if I'm Jake Ballantyne, I'm sitting here, I'm saying, man, this guy's full of That's what he's going to sit here and say. Okay.
Always, I don't care what I sold, whether it was insurance or carpet or upholstery or drapes, and nobody had a problem with me with a Better Business Bureau or nothing like that. And I'm proud of that. Damn it, I've been a good guy. I really have, Dr. Pitt. All my life, I've been upstanding. I made a mistake.
Okay.
And he's crazy. I'm not full of I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you know, I understand how people look at me sometimes. And I'm not putting on, this is not an act. I know how people think. Okay. I'm tired of hearing it.
He broke down. He finally couldn't come to grips with the answer, which showed at least myself and Dr. Pitt, that underneath it all, this individual just was so frail emotionally that he could not cope with his life force factors, and that's what put him in this position. Be it selfish.
Selfishness is the absolute key word with everybody in this. You know, am I going to have to eliminate my witness so that I don't have to go to spend the rest of my life in prison for something that I did, that they witnessed? Am I going to have to kill somebody so that I can have this girlfriend that I really want bad? Am I going to have to kill somebody because they're just making life miserable for me at work, and I need to get rid of that? Whatever the reasons are, it's I want it, I'm going to get it, and whoever's in my way is going to fall.
You will see a common theme or a common thread in cases just like this. That is, in cases where individuals engage in hiring an outside person to murder an individual so that they can then go on with their own life. The majority of the offenders are very poor at conflict resolution.
What do you want me to do? Lie to you?
Experts say it is the same quality that makes people like Deborah Moonlaw so persistent and, by extension, so dangerous.
She's the type of person that once she makes up her mind about doing something, she follows up with it until it's done. And that's what scared me mostly about her.
Nabil Moonlaw says his wife's determination to see him dead was completely terrifying.
At the same time, I was really very, very scared that if the police department don't intervene in the right time, she might find somebody else. She might be talking to other hit people or persons that might be doing a job for her. So I was very, very scared.
It scares not only intended victims, but also police. They worry that someone seeking a killer might just find one, a real one.
A murder for hire really is about two crimes, not one. The murderers and those who hire. If you don't put the two together, if the murderer and the hirer never get together, there's no problem.
But as a former federal prosecutor, Stephen Marr knows they sometimes do get together. And he says that's why law enforcement agents prioritize murder-for-hire cases, to make sure someone looking for a hitman won't find one.
The worst thing that I can ever think of is that I did not get the job. And 2 weeks, a month later, I read in the paper that this person is dead. Or 2 years. Maybe time passes, they get past it, and 2 years later they finally find somebody that can do it, and they are able to accomplish it.
You have to take this seriously. Otherwise, there for real could be a corpse out there. So you have to take it seriously.
This undercover FBI agent, who was wearing a disguise, was instrumental in one such murder-for-hire case against this man, Christopher Fontenot. In the early 90s, Fontenot was a drug dealer in desperate need of a hitman.
I'm from Louisiana. We eat crawfish, but we don't crawfish. Crawfish only goes backwards.
People who don't think they can go backwards.
We don't crawfish.
People who think that there is only one solution.
So if you have a problem, you eliminate it.
Are dangerous people, especially when one of those solutions is to kill someone else.
The someone else Fontenot wanted murdered was his estranged wife, Catherine. With her dead, he hoped to win sole custody of their daughter.
We're in San Francisco. Next stop is Alcatraz.
Fontenot's story began in 1990, while he was vacationing in California. Since he did not take the stand at his trial, this is the first time Fontenot has spoken publicly about his case.
While my girlfriend and I were in San Francisco for that first week, I had a camcorder with us.
Among other things, Fontenot videotaped a limousine ride while enjoying the sights of San Francisco.
We want to go across the Golden Gate. Other points of interest in the city would be nice.
What he didn't know at the time was that his hired limo driver was about to reshape Fontenot's future.
Comes with a video?
Yes.
How much you pay for it? Size?
Marcelo Feldberg was far more than just a limo driver and tour guide. Feldberg was also a street hustler and a federal informant who frequently fed agents information on scams and swindles. It didn't take long for him to become a confidant of Christopher Fontenot.
Fontenot began to ask him, you know, maybe you can help me out. And it started out, I think, with spying on Kathy Fontenot to get evidence in the custody dispute. But quickly and unfortunately, it turned to something, you know, more sinister, and that was the plan was hatched, ultimately to hire someone to murder Kathy Fontenot.
Hello, correspondent.
We first wanted to recreate what Marcelo had told us was going, so we instructed him to make a few phone calls to Fontenot.
You sure you want to do this? Yes. You want to blow away your wife, my ex-wife, you want to blow it away?
Do we have to say this?
Huh?
I said, do we have to say this?
Well, we're alone, nobody listening now, right?
Right, but let's be cool.
I didn't realize what he was doing was entrapping me.
But the FBI tapes make it hard to buy Fontenot's story that he was confused and ultimately entrapped by overzealous agents. In fact, Fontenot had earlier wired Feldberg $1,000 to show he was serious about the murder contract.
Like I said, we're talking 25 to life or more. I want to make sure that you're sure, you're positive you want to go ahead and do it?
Yes, sir.
If you tell me now, you know, Marcelo.
No, I'm not changing my mind, sir.
I know, but I gotta say this too, okay? If you tell me, look, Marcelo, I changed my mind, I would send you $1,000 regardless right now.
He was given many opportunities to withdraw. At some points, Marcelo would even try to persuade him to, and at each point, he was relentlessly determined to proceed. So at that point, we arranged a situation in which an FBI, very successful and talented undercover FBI agent, was set up in a motel room at the airport, and he was to play the hired killer.
I found the room that I had been directed to go to. I knocked on the door. A gentleman met me at the door.
So, let's see. This could be nerve-wracking, you know? Yeah. Right. Sit down, we'll talk about it. I want to go over a few things with you anyway, to start with.
Yeah, let's just take it slow, will we?
Yeah.
Wash my hands.
Sure, yeah. He appeared nervous, but he also appeared very cautious. He didn't appear in any way fearful of me. He appeared far more that he was nervous. After all, here's a man getting ready to hire somebody to kill his wife.
You can go anywhere you want. I don't care. Me too. It might be sort of right.
Wound up frisking each other. By the way, I did have a microphone on me at that point in case we had to leave the hotel room and go somewhere else, but he didn't find it.
All right, now, so you got the money. All right.
The price would be $10,000. He said he would bring another $2,500 with him, and then the remainder would be given to me after the murder had been completed.
It got in over my head. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
He is a good example of why this crime is kind of different than what the public perception is. I think the public perception is that this is a crime committed sometimes by powerful people, by people with sinister connections to vast underworld conspiracies, when in fact, in our experience, most of the time it's people who are very powerless.
Experts say Fontenot is like so many others involved in murders for hire. He expresses very little remorse and a great deal of anger towards the government, and specifically former prosecutor Stephen Marr.
He should have seen that his informants were liars, thieves, cheats, had many convictions for all sorts of things.
But the FBI's hidden camera videotapes make it clear that Fontenot was leading and not following on the path toward murder. Furthermore, just like Jan Solomon, Fontenot claimed he wasn't really serious and simply didn't know how to back out of the murder contract.
I mean, you've met the man that's going to do a job. You can't say, I've seen you, I know who you are, and walk out. It doesn't happen that way. You know, just doesn't happen.
But it could have happened this time, as the FBI tape makes clear.
Once we get finished talking here today, you're not going to see me again. This thing is in motion, and it's going to end, and you can't bring your wife back. Once she's gone, she's gone. And if you want to end it, if you don't want to do it, tell me right now, I'll give you your money back. You want to do it? Okay. So when we leave here today, and we're not going to take long, it's over, okay? You understand that? Yes, all right.
I mean, you can say I didn't know how to back out, but the opportunity was presented right there. All he had to say was, okay. That's not that hard.
We got into discussions of perhaps how I could do it. He wanted it to look like an accident. We discussed a couple of different ways that it could look like an accident.
Is she known to be a crazy driver? Like she get a lot of tickets, right? Oh, yeah. She does? Yes. Okay. So if she had problems driving too fast, it wouldn't surprise anybody. Oh, no.
Fontenot says contrary to the image portrayed in the FBI tapes, he is actually a loving and devoted father who often turns to religion.
I was born, baptized, and raised as a Roman Catholic. I went to a private Catholic school. I was an altar boy for 7 years. Religion, to me, is a very big aspect of my life and who I am.
Ironically, Fontenot's faith was also going to be a major factor in the murder of his ex-wife.
Okay, but whenever she be intact, or what do you mean intact? I mean, would she be decapitated or just hands off or anything?
No, I mean, will we be able to use I'm a Roman Catholic, and this might seem a little crazy, but I did want to be last night and be able to have
together body.
I understand if it can't be, but I was just wondering.
Well, that's a priority. That's something I'll look into to see if I can't do it right so she's looking good.
This certainly was a reflection to me that this man has put a lot of time and thought on this, even to take it to such a bizarre length as this, or macabre may be the better word, of envisioning her in the casket.
Fontenot ended up serving 8 years in federal prison after being convicted of crossing state lines and wiring money in the commission of a murder for hire. After his release, he moved in with his mother in Louisiana. His ex-wife is remarried and refuses to discuss the case, saying she still fears her former husband.
I think Catherine can certainly be forgiven for continuing to believe that Fontenot may pose a threat to her. I think it is not a very easy circumstance for her to have looked at a videotape in which the father of her child is essentially trying to persuade and pay someone to kill her.
Is everything satisfactory for you?
I got no problems. We got a deal.
That's what we did.
Okay, all right.
And in a perfect world, if we could get all of those who murder for money off the streets, a person like Chris Fontenot would not be dangerous. The problem is, the world isn't perfect. There are people out there who also lead lives of desperation that are willing to kill people for money. And there are a lot of those people.
Many intended victims of murder for hire are left traumatized by the mere possibility that a real killer may pick up the murder contract.
My life one day, for all intents and purposes, ended at an office in San Francisco. Any documents that pertain to my life, pertain to anything that would track me electronically, Social Security, driver's license, things like that, they all go to this office in San Francisco, and that's where they stop. And there are a few people in the world that know where I'm at.
Jim Swan is not eligible for the Federal Witness Protection Program since he was not a witness to a federal crime. But he is still in hiding, afraid he will be murdered by a former gay lover.
A great portion of the energy in my life for the last 4 years has been focused on trying to manage the devastation that this man has brought into my life.
Gary Parkinson has been relentless in his desire to see Jim Swan killed.
I've never seen, of the murderers and the other criminals that I've prosecuted in my career, anyone as persistent as Parkinson.
Deputy District Attorney Lawrence Barnes prosecuted Parkinson for paying a hitman to have Jim Swan strangled. Fortunately, the killer was an undercover cop, and Parkinson is now behind bars, where he has continued to strategize Swan's murder.
Many people will learn their lesson, or at least recognize the chances of getting caught increase once they go to jail. But Parkinson, once he found himself in jail, made phone calls, wrote at least one letter, made continuing contacts to have his intended victim murdered. It's the first time in my career that I actually contacted the sheriff to ask him to restrict the communication privileges of one of his prisoners because the individual wouldn't stop trying to get people murdered.
Parkinson was a physician in the small community of Concord, California. It was here, in a shopping center parking lot, where he entered into a contract for Swan's murder.
I have to ask this. I'm not a cop. I'm not wired. You're not a cop. You're not wired.
No.
Or cool.
Okay. Cool.
So what do you need to know from me?
Dr. Parkinson basically laid out the way that he wanted Mr. Swan killed and provided me all the necessary tools to get it done, including a photo of Swan, a map of the area where he lived, and half of the money up front.
To the extent that Parkinson ever had any second doubts or thoughts about this, or possible remorse about having Jim Swan murdered, he had dealt with that long before he got in the car with Scott Harn.
How do you want this to? Well, basically, I need to make sure it doesn't come off onto me. Accident would be best because I'm going to get financially regardless. That double indemnity would help.
He's arranged for himself to be the beneficiary on a life insurance policy in Jim Swan's name. And he believes that if there's an accidental death, or one that appears to be accidental, he'll get not just $460,000 from Jim Swan's death, but close to $1 million.
Parkinson's meeting with the hitman had been set up by a friend, a woman who had gone to Concord police when Parkinson first discussed having his ex-lover murdered. At the direction of detectives, she telephoned Parkinson to say she could arrange a meeting with a hitman.
And then he wanted me to ask you if you really, you really want to kill him, because once he takes that money,
yeah, it's over.
Jim's dead.
I understand. I understand that.
So.
And before I actually hand him the money, I'm praying on it.
Yeah.
The Lord actually was pretty much telling me to do it, but I need to. First of all, I need to see, and I need to know how much it's going to cost.
What he was saying there, in my view, is he was telling our informant that he has thought this through, that he's weighed the consequences for and against, that he's thought about the moral implications of what he's doing, and he's prepared to go ahead and pull the trigger.
You sure you want this guy dead, though? I want this guy dead, quickly, very quickly. Because I think if he's still running his mouth, because right now, he is, Well, he's been paranoid for weeks and weeks, and I haven't really seen it for 4 or 5 weeks, but I know he's paranoid, and this arson deal is and it'll go away when he goes away. Period, it will.
You see, Parkinson had become a suspect in the arson of a building that he had leased for a business with Jim Swan. The business didn't do well. Parkinson, being the physician of the operation, was the individual liable for the lease. And so he was suspected in the arson of an adjoining suite that caused his to become uninhabitable for a portion of time.
He was really concerned. His major worry seemed to be that if Jim talked to us, he was going to go to jail for the arson. And I'm befuddled because Jim talked to us several times and he didn't know anything about the arson.
Parkinson aimed really to do more than hit a single with this. I think he figured he was going to hit a triple. He'd eliminate a witness, he'd eliminate a jilted lover and get his revenge. He'd also find a way to get himself darn near $1 million as a consequence.
How are we going to work out payment here? Okay, what do you want to do, half and half or what? That'd be fine. Okay. Okay. What do you want as proof? You want me to take a Polaroid photo afterwards, or what?
Yeah, if you could. He evidently wanted me to be strangled, and so he decided to use a belt. that I would just slip the belt over my head and lie down, and they would take the picture. And everything was going fine, and I just sat down on the bed and I went to put the belt over my head, and it was just the most bizarre moment in my life.
After the picture was delivered at a drop point in a shopping center, Parkinson and a companion were arrested. But not even that stopped the physician.
It's my understanding while he was in custody, he was slowed down a little bit, but he still attempted to carry out this deal.
He's the sort of individual who, once he gets it in his mind that he wants someone dead and believes that the only way out of the case is to get more people dead, is simply prepared to go through with it.
While in jail awaiting trial, Parkinson wrote to a friend asking for help in arranging the murder of a woman named Vicky, the same woman who had originally gone to the police.
I know this is very difficult, my dear. I hate to have to ask you to do this, but I see no other choice. I want to live. I want to be back in the world and alive. I want to live. Without Vicky, they have no case. I love you, Dr. P.
It is Parkinson's persistence and desperation that has devastated Jim Swan's life.
I mean, it's one huge thing to know that someone wants you dead. It's another thing entirely to hear them say the words, "This is how I want Jim to die. These are the last words that I want him to hear, before he dies."
It is all too similar to the experience of Nabil Moonlaw and so many other intended victims in murder-for-hire cases.
My conversations with Nabil Moonlaw convince me still today he's worried, even though his ex-wife is in prison. He's worried that she's going to find somebody in prison now that can do it to him. So I don't think they ever get over that.
There is this little voice in the back of my head every now and then that says, "Be careful," which has affected my life. My meeting somebody else, and for a while at the beginning, I really stopped trusting people.
Jim Swan still finds it difficult to trust people. In fact, he now lives life looking over his shoulder. He was relieved when Parkinson was arrested and placed in a county jail while awaiting trial. But that relief gave way to terror when he learned how Parkinson was still plotting Swan's murder. Then, after Parkinson was convicted and sent to a state prison, Swan again felt better, but that too was short-lived.
He's in county jail and it's been bad, but now once we get a conviction in court, he'll go into the state system and I'll be even safer. And the reality is that that's not necessarily true. The way it was described to me by the DA's office is in county jail, he's associating with amateur criminals, and in the state system, he's suddenly with the professionals, the people who don't need dollars on the table to go and kill somebody, people who are whacked just like he is, or crazy just like he is, who will kill just because someone asks them to kill.
For the intended victims of murder-for-hire schemes, safety can indeed seem elusive.
I'm very concerned about him. I believe without any hesitation that he, if he has an opportunity, will try to finish what he began. I will feel safe on the day that I get a phone call from the California Department of Corrections telling me that Gary has passed away. That's when I'll feel safe.
All too often, the intended victims evade murder plots, only to discover that their sense of security has given way to a constant feeling of fear and betrayal.
This is what he wanted to have happen to me. This person that I had spent 5 years with, this is how he wanted my life to end.
Those who search out a hitman are often law-abiding citizens with no previous criminal history, and that makes murder for hire so frightening and unpredictable.
When you analyze all the inane reasons for contract killings, you realize that any of us could end up on a hit list.
And once on that list, there is always a chance that desperation will give way to deadly success.